154,633. For free day secondary school, that is term 3, for the academic year 2023, under the financial year 2022-2023, the budgeted allocation was 63,160,788,241. For that academic year, the allocation was 44,429,121,151. The amount disbursed for that financial year was 61,037,919,069. For 2024, the academic year 2023, the financial year 2023-2024, the budgeted allocation was 63,958,212,645. For the academic year, the allocation was 64,787,591,731. That financial year, the actual disbursed was 62,853,104,675. For 2024 academic year, the 2024-2025 financial year, their budgeted allocation was 59,885,600,000. For that academic year, the allocation was 14,145,824,283, and the amount disbursed was 14,145,824,283. The actual timely disbursements out of that, Mr. Speaker, is as follows. On the 26th of January 2023, which is term 1 of 2023, the total enrollment was 3,690,376. The total disbursement was 16,289,024,433.92 cents. On 12th of June 2023, term 2 of 2023, the enrollment was 3,664,366. The disbursement made was 15,208,401,428.10 cents. On 2nd of January 2024, which is term 1 of 2024, the total enrollment was 3,881,717. The total disbursement was 32,394,641,274. On 24th of June 2024, term 2 of 2024, the total enrollment was 4,043,714. The total disbursement was 18,247,126,174 shillings. On the 20th of August, which is term 3, 4 million in enrollment was 4,179,615. The disbursement was 14,145,824,283. Mr. Speaker, it's to be noted that over the last 5 years, the funds provided to the Ministry of Education have fallen short of the approved rate, leading to underfunding of the schools. The ministry then is compelled to divide the available amount with the number of learners, which has been increasing every year. This results in capitation amounts that are lower than that is approved. To illustrate this, there is a provision under Table 4, and you will see if you go to the approved budget, for example, in 2018-2019, the approved budget was 59,418,512,759. The enrollment for that year was 2,810,655. The requirement in order to meet that enrollment was supposed to be 62,520,209,820, based on the capitation figures of 1420, 15,000, and 22,000. The deficit, as you can see there, is 3,170,568,934. The rate of disbursement, you can see, comes to 21,1 $1.45 instead of the 22,000. In 2019-2020 financial year, the approved budget was 59,419,942,418. The enrollment for that year was 2,948,062. The actual requirement should have been 65,576,691,128. The deficit is 6,156,748,710. The rate disbursed then comes to 20,155.59 cents. The year 2020 to 2021 financial year, the approved budget was 59,421,865,698. The enrollment was 3,396,322. The actual required was 75,547,786,568. The deficit there is 16,125,985,973. The rate disbursed then comes to 17,495 from the 22,000 that is required. The year 2021-2022, the approved budget was 62,421,865,698. The enrollment was 3,587,081. The requirement was supposed to be 79,791,029,764. The deficit is 17,369,456,555. The rate disbursed was 17,401. The year 2022-2023, the approved budget is 64,421,865. The enrollment is 3.6, almost 3.7 million. The requirement was supposed to be at least 82,088,723,000. The deficit is 17,666,873, leading to a rate of disbursement of 17,456. So there has been a consistent deficit from the amount approved against the requirements and against the increment in enrollment of the students that have been increasing, while the budget has not been increasing in tandem with the students. Mr. Speaker, what measures the ministry has taken to ensure timely disbursement? Mr. Speaker, the ministry has taken steps to ensure that there is timely disbursement of the capitation to schools. From the beginning of 2023-2024 financial year, capitation is now disbursed on timely basis on the ratio of 50-30-20. That means for term 1, we do 50%, term 2, we do 30%, and term 3, we do 20%. This is a change from the previous disbursements that were being done quarterly. The ministry requests for funds, and these funds are released immediately they are received. The ministry requests for funds from the Exchequer at least 3 weeks before schools open. Once funds are received from Exchequer, the same are disbursed to schools immediately. There might be some delays that some schools do not receive the money on a timely basis when the Exchequer has delayed, when the capitation disbursement sometimes delay. As a ministry, we consistently follow up with National Treasury to ensure that there is timely provision of the funds. The schools are also required to upload all their learners and bank accounts on the National Education Management Information System, NEMIS. In some cases where the schools do not receive their funds on time, there are situations where there are erroneous information that is uploaded, causing to the rejection of the funds by the banks. School heads are routinely oriented on what is required of them to ensure compliance. I submit.
Honorable Boni, you may now ask your 2 supplementary questions.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Minister for this detailed response, and want to tell him that the situation on the report is acceptable. But on the ground, where the rubber meets the road, the situation is different. In the sense that in Kakamega and many other counties, literally all the heads of schools, they are waiting for money, which is not forthcoming. They're unable to fund the activities in the school, and children end up being taken at home because of those delays. My first question. Minister, go to page 2 of your response. Look at bullet 4. The actual termly disbursements are as follows. What is the accuracy of this response if in term 1 you had 900,000 children as enrolled, and in term 3 it had increased by 1 million children? Where did these 1 million children come from that were not there in term 1? It begs for the answer, are these actual figures, or you are sending money for fake and imaginary beneficiaries? My second question, Mr. Minister, sir, I invite you to go to bullet 6 of your answer, and you're telling us that in the year 2023, there was a deficit of 17.6 billion shillings deficit. Minister, where do you expect the head teachers to get the money from of meeting this deficit of 17 billion when you have sent a circular forbidding the leadership of schools from levying any charges to these children, to the parents through these children? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, Honorable CS, just note down the questions. You'll take a few from other senators, and then you respond at once. Senator Eddy. Senator Muma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Welcome, Honorable CS, to the Senate. My question is on the information you've just given us of yearly deficits on capitation for secondary schools. Has the ministry done an impact assessment on the continued failure to meet the required budget for capitation? And if so, how many needy students have you captured who have fallen off the secondary school as a result of this? Secondly, how do you link the bursary funds that purportedly are given by governors, by members of parliament, in regard to the deficit that you have presented in this table? Thank you.
Senator Karungo. Only one question, honorable senators.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mine is very simple. If you look at page 3 of the response from the CS, he has given us a table there of approved budget, enrollment, requirement, deficit. All I wanted to know is that because he has only given the data of 2022-2023, I'd want to know how many learners do we have in the current year of 2024, and that is in secondary schools. How many learners do we have?
Senator Wambua Enoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker, looking at the table on page 2, the one after bullet 6, there is consistent deficit in funding for the budget of for capitation since the year 2019. 2019, 2020, 2021, 22, 23, a serious deficit. How does the ministry then bridge that gap, and why are they not learning from since 2019? There has always been this deficit. What are they doing about this? I mean, they are carrying it forward in every year. Can that be linked to the talk about ghost schools and ghost students as asked by Senator Alwale? I thank the Speaker.
Senator Gloria Oroba.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is, with regards to all the deficits that we are seeing, does this have a relation with the current deficits that you have for the return to work formula with the lecturers, as we are currently seeing the university lecturers striking because they claim that the return to work formula was 9 billion that should have been released, but government only gave 4-point-something billion, again pointing out that there is a deficit which is clearly a recurring problem.
Senator S.C. Okenyuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also wish to direct this to the Cabinet Secretary. There are general concerns around the disbursement of capitation, especially to special needs education institutions. This is because the Ministry of Education tends to prioritize primary and secondary school institutions, ignoring this other cadre. And during public participation of a bill by Senator Sige recently, the chairperson of these institutions actually brought to our attention that the top-up to learners with disability in these special needs institutions is actually less than Kenya shillings 2,500 per disabled learner. And all of them are treated equally. Whether you're blind, whether you can't walk, it's an equal treatment. Cabinet Secretary, please highlight why this is actually happening. Thank you.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to know from the Minister, the CS, that the junior secondary schools is actually a big challenge in this country. And especially in northern Kenya, my county, Wajir County, has acute shortage of teachers.
Now, Senator Abbas.
Yes, sir.
Your supplementary question must flow from the primary question. The subject matter is capitation.
Capitation, yes, I see.
Okay, proceed.
Okay. I proceed?
Yeah, as long as you're talking on
No,
capitation.
mine is on the same thing I was just asking. Maybe I can ask later.
Yes, because the minister
Okay.
has a few more
I will,
questions, to respond to. Maybe it will be captured in one of the questions that are going to be responded to. Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond to those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for those questions. Now, in terms of the increment of the numbers that changed from term 1 to term 2, it is because at term 2 there were 2 cohorts moving class 7 together with grade 8 because of the transition that was taking place between the CBC and the 844. That was the cause of that increment in number. With respect to the deficit of 17.6 billion, what has happened is consistently the figures that are being disbursed by Treasury against the requirement in view of the policy of 100% transition has continuously, the numbers have gone up, the numbers of students have gone up, and the amounts have not been proportional to the number to meet the actual capitation that is given. So at no time has the ministry received the fund that is sufficient to cover the capitation that is approved, the 1420, the 22,000, and the 15,000. So that makes it, of course, difficult for the heads of schools to run the schools. And what then happens is we advise them to try and reallocate the resources they have across the board. Of course, it affects the running of the school. And we have consistently urged Treasury and the government to at least disburse as close as possible to the requirements. So it's not something that is an easy solution. I think it's a challenge that the whole government has in terms of the allocation. and the allocation is normally given as a block instead of as a student. So what we have to deal with eventually is to probably, even if we insisted, if the money doesn't come through, the ministry doesn't have capacity to insist. We can only say we have this number of students, this is the amount of money we need, then we wait for the allocation to come. And then what comes is what we normally distribute. So it's a challenge that the ministry has, and the ministry is grappling with that problem to see what else can be done, because it's affecting the running of schools. In terms of the next question that related to whether we've done the information in terms of the impact assessment on the consistent failure to meet and the students who have fallen off, this we've not yet done. We have not yet done, but generally we know that when you do not give enough money to the schools, there is evidence that the quality and the performance of some of the schools may fall below the required standards, because it becomes very difficult, for example, for the head teachers to run the school. So they're in that situation where it's a bit difficult for them, but it is something that as a ministry we have to grapple with and see what else can be done, where else can we efficiently run using these funds to ensure that we are able to uphold the standards of our education that is required. With respect to the bursary funds, may I request, Mr. Speaker, that I answer this question when I'm answering the bursary question, because it's there. I can answer it together.
Very well, Honorable CS.
How many students do we have currently in schools, especially in the secondary schools? The actual number is currently for 2024 is 4.2 million, Honorable Kalingo. The deficit is, how does this gap link to shortage ghost schools? I don't think there is a link between the shortages and ghost schools. That would be a surplus. What we have is a shortage because we have more students than we have the resources. So there is no linkage between arguments of ghost schools or ghost students. In fact, what has happened is from last year, we did an actual physical census of all the schools that we have in the country and all the students that we have. And we completed that exercise about 2 weeks ago. Currently, we are undertaking an analysis of that data that was collected to ensure that this question that keeps recurring about ghost schools, about ghost students, is put to rest. So we've done a physical census of each and every student that we have, of each and every school that we have in the country with proper coding. We are now doing an analysis to link them to what we have in NEMIS to ensure that we actually, the numbers that we are giving are the numbers that we have on the ground. Madam Gloria, the question of whether the current deficit is linked to the deficit that UASU is having vis-a-vis the return to work formula, the answer to that question is this. There is a general deficit of the budget against what is required, and I think it's just in every ministry. And because of what has been happening relating to, especially this year with the finance bill, we had challenges in ensuring that we meet the obligations that we have. But in terms of the return to work formula, the challenge that is there with UASU and with ourselves, and we're having a meeting this afternoon to continue discussing that issue, is we agreed on a 7% and 10% increment. But then that 7% and 10% increment had to be financed. You have to do the actual calculation to come up with a figure that supports the 7% and the 10% increment vis-a-vis the number of years that we have to do that. But when that simulation was done, the figure that the government has against the figure that UASU has differs by almost 5 billion. So that is the discussion that we are having to find out what is that challenge, what is the reason for that calculation. Because when we calculate with the 7%, 10%, and the 4% annual increment, it comes 4.3 billion. When we put in the figure of 9 billion, the increment moves from 7% or 10% to a different figure, to a different percentage. But that's now a question of just doing the workings to find out a middle ground and agree that this is the actual figure. And we have a meeting this afternoon. That's why I requested Mr. Speaker to allow me to finish by 1 o'clock so that I can go and have that meeting with them so that we can solve that problem. Madam, Senator AC, the question on special needs schools, the problem falls across the board. So even the special needs schools, the amount of top-up that they are supposed to get has a deficit. So it cuts across the board. The problem is the same because we receive the disbursements as a block, then we allocate to the number of students that we have. And that has always been a deficit. And we are trying as much as possible to see whether there is a way that we can have these figures ring-fenced so that in future we at least be sure that our education system does not face the number of crises that is facing each and every year, each and every time. I think that was the last question, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, honorable senators, we will move to the next question. That is question number 36. However, we'll skip it for a few minutes. We'll come back to it. We will instead move to question number 48 by the senator for Kisumu County. And I'm informed Senator Eddy is holding brief for Professor Tom Ogenda, who is representing the Senate in the case before court today. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, I'm holding brief for Senator for Kisumu County, Senator Tom Ogenda, who sought to ask the Cabinet Secretary the following questions. Number one, Mr. Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary state whether the Ministry of Education has affected the contents of circular number OPCAB 308/018 dated October 2nd, 2023, issued by the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, suspending non-essential foreign travel by government officers. B, as the Minister assessed the consequences of the travel suspension on public universities, particularly with regard to capacity building, the discharge of public duty, and the quality of education offered. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, could the Minister also share with the House what measures will the Ministry take to ensure that the implementation of the circular does not indiscriminately hinder essential travel in public universities? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do confirm, Mr. Speaker, that the Ministry of Education has effected the contents of the circular. The circular seeks to rationalize foreign travel and to achieve prudence and cost-effectiveness in relation to costs associated with foreign travel. With respect to the second limb of the question, I wish to clarify that the circular, Mr. Speaker, is not a blanket ban on foreign travel. The circular suspends non-essential travel. Travel to attend critical activities outside the country is still permitted. Requests for travel, Mr. Speaker, are assessed on a case-to-case basis and approved on their individual merit. Staff of our public universities have indeed continued to travel to attend essential and critical businesses abroad. Mr. Speaker, on the third question, as I've indicated above, essential travel is not prohibited. Each request for foreign travel, Mr. Speaker, is reviewed on its merits, and where such travel is deemed essential, approval is granted. Each request for foreign travel has to demonstrate, Mr. Speaker, the value that such travel
Senator
will add
Fernandi,
to the individual.
just go take your seat. Proceed to your seat, please. Proceed, Honorable CS.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Each request for foreign travel, Mr. Speaker, has to demonstrate the value that such travel will add to the individual and his or her institution. There has to be a demonstration of value for money. The key factors that are considered are the value that such travel will add, the necessity of such travel to fulfill either treaty or regional or international obligations, and the unavailability of other cost-effective alternatives such as virtual meetings or sending our officers who are stationed in those foreign countries to represent the team. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Eddy, you may now ask your 2 supplementary questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, from the presentation by the CS, you've realized that the clarification on non-essential travel as pertains to the ministry is not that clear. So my question is, CS, have you been able to put a circular through the universities, all public universities, on what entails non-essential foreign travels and what entails essential foreign travels to the clarity of the public universities? And secondly, Mr. Speaker, when exactly were the dates of implementation of this particular notice? And what has been the impact assessment of that implementation since then?
Senator Chiranke.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to find out from the CS, you know, for each and every child to access capitation, Mr. Speaker,
No, Honorable
you need...
Senator, we are done with our question. We are now on question number 048.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, just can the CS give us the reason why the non-essential travel was banned and how much has been saved by the ministry for saving non-essential travel as provided by the secular?
Senator Richard Onyonka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. CS Migos Ogamba happens to be a very good friend of mine. I want to congratulate him and wish him the best. I believe he is up to the task. The responsibility has been given by the government. Mr. CS, you said the number of students are 4.2 million, and you said there was a physical census. And
Senator Richard Onyonka, we are on question number 048 on foreign travel. So your supplementary question.
Thank you, sir. I will ask him the question foreign travel. You've explained that your responsibility is to look, the circular you gave had something to do with the essential travel and the number of people who are supposed to be traveling. I did not hear you mention the number. In other words, the feeling and the observation I've made is that you find when government officers are traveling, sometimes you will find that even when you have reduced the number of the individuals traveling, you do not particularly discuss the number that, for example, a PS can travel with, the number that a director can travel with. And indeed, in your office, I know you are entitled to go either with the PA and 2 other people. Have you observed that as an issue that could have increased the number of people who are traveling? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, my question is one. I wanted to find out from the CS that since the release of the circular and requests that have been made by the universities, because we know our lecturers, these are researchers, they go for conferences, serious conferences, and also meeting their own peers to enhance knowledge. Since the release of the circular, how many requests have been made to the CS, and how many did he approve since the time of the release of the circular?
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the circular is quite clear on what essential travel is, and it states that essential travel is part of fulfillment of state obligations and pursuant to the conduct of critical state party engagements for the purpose of fulfilling a statutory leadership or membership role in which critical decisions impacting on the country's position are considered. So there are parameters that have been provided for in the circular, which is the guiding light, And this circular has been sent to all the universities, and each and every vice chancellor has circulated it to their members. And that is what we are following. We are not creating anything new. And what is important is to confirm that what the officer is going to do can't be done by anybody else, or it's going to bring in some other advantage, some other value that is required as indicated in that particular circular. So that the impact assessment has not been undertaken since the circular was issued on the October 2nd, 2023. It's just about a year old, and I think it is now ripe for that particular impact assessment to be undertaken, and I think that's what we are likely to do. But we have not done it yet to confirm how much money has been saved, how many people have traveled, etc., etc. But the numbers have reduced. Senator Chiragay, the reason why non-essential travel was banned, this is because I think a lot of people were traveling without good reason, and it increased the cost of foreign travel for ministries, and it became necessary to ensure that there are regulations and guidelines to limit the number of travels that are not essential, and as I said earlier, that can be performed by officers that we have in those foreign countries, or that can be done using what we are indicating as on online meetings, etc., etc. So it became necessary that we limit that number to reduce. It's a cost-cutting measure that is across the ministry and across the government in various sectors, and this is one of them. To Senator Onyonka, yes, the number is limited. It was reduced. It was found that initially you would find maybe a cabinet minister is traveling with a very big delegation. So the number was reduced, and there is a provision for delegation size in that particular circular. For example, cabinet secretaries, delegations headed by cabinet secretaries shall not exceed 3 persons, including the cabinet secretary themselves as the head of the circular. So you need to decide if you are going, you'll go with one other person. If it's a technical meeting, you go with a technical person, so that you do not carry all and sundry. Headed by principal secretary shall not exceed 2 persons themselves. That's 1 + 1. Where a chairperson is traveling, the chairperson of a state corporation will not travel with any other person. They travel alone, 1 + 0. Delegation headed by chairpersons or chief executive officers of constitutional commissions, they are allowed 1 + 1. The person, the chairperson or the CEO plus one other person. So this is the model that we are following, and obviously it has reduced the cost and the expenses. We have not done, as I've indicated, the actual number figures, but we are going to do that because now it's a year, it's been done, we've finished 1 year. And the question relating to the requests that have come from the universities, we do not have the exact number, but as indicated earlier, when a request comes, the assessment is done against the circular. What the university vice chancellor or DON is going to do, is it essential? Can it be done by somebody else? And the number. So we are following that closely, and we have not arbitrarily rejected or not approved an essential travel. But where we see that is not essential or where the number exceeds what is required, we of course do not, we rationalize that and we do not approve. Thank you, I submit.
Honorable Senators, we'll now move to question number 52. Senator Beatrice Ogola.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for granting me the chance, and I thank the CS for being present to address these questions. I address question number 052 as indicated. My question is, 1, what criteria is used in the selection of interns to be engaged by basic education institutions in Kenya? And could the Cabinet Secretary clarify whether individuals who undertook teaching practice during their studies in college are eligible? 2, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of interns currently engaged in the institutions and specify their responsibilities, terms of engagement, and duration of service? And 3, Could the Cabinet Secretary state plans by the government to transition the engagement of the interns into permanent or pensionable terms and provide the criteria to be used as well as the timelines? And lastly, what steps has the government taken to ensure that junior secondary school, GSS, are adequately staffed, considering the existing staffing gap being filled by the interns? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the registration and recruitment of teachers is the constitutional mandate of the Teacher Service Commission as per Article 237, sub-Article 2 of the Constitution. Upon consultation with the Commission over the question, the Commission has advised as follows. The selection of teacher interns adheres to the Teacher Internship Policy and Guidelines 2019 set by the Teacher Service Commission. The Commission follows a structured set of criteria to ensure equity, diversity, and the highest standards of professionalism. The criteria include professional and academic qualifications. Candidates must meet specific academic and professional qualifications. For example, for primary school teacher interns must possess a P1 certificate or a diploma in primary teacher education. Junior school and secondary school teacher interns must hold at least a diploma in education with a minimum mean grade of C+ in the KCSE and C+ in 2 teaching subjects. The selection based on fair competition and merit. The available vacancies are advertised, Mr. Speaker, based on budgetary provisions appropriated by the National Assembly. Selection is based on merit, assessed through factors like quality of academic certificates, age, and length of stay since graduation. There is also the item on regional representation. Candidates are selected with consideration for regional diversity, ensuring that all areas of the country are represented and have equal access to teaching opportunities. There is gender consideration. Efforts are made to promote gender balance in the teaching service and support equal opportunities for all genders. Disability status. The special consideration is also given to candidates with disabilities, ensuring that the teaching service is inclusive and offers equal opportunities to the individuals with diverse needs in the Persons and Disabilities Act 2003. Registration and employment status. All candidates seeking internship must be registered with the Teacher Service Commission and be unemployed and not previously employed by the Commission on permanent and pensionable basis. Lastly, availability of vacancies. Selection is strictly based on the availability of vacancies within each county and or sub-county. Teaching practice is a core component of a teacher training program that is undertaken during the teacher's training in a college or university. Teaching practice lasts for a term. Accordingly, all teachers must have undertaken teaching practice in college before qualifying. On the other hand, the teacher internship program is a postgraduate step intended to provide opportunity for qualified teachers to acquire, develop, and sharpen their teaching skills and also learn the ethos of the teaching service. In addition, the program enables interns to enhance their pedagogical skills and competencies through job experience. It also assists in providing teaching service with qualified, mentored, and fully inducted personnel for purposes of curriculum delivery. On the second limb of the question, on the list of interns currently engaged, Mr. Speaker, the Service Commission maintains a list of all teacher interns, including their stations. The standard duration of internship is 2 years, with responsibilities primarily centered on teaching, lesson planning, and participation in other school activities, such as co-curricular activities. Mr. Speaker, the list of the intern teachers is provided under Annexure 3, and we did forward a soft copy because it runs, I think, to 2,500.
Honorable Senators, that particular list is contained in your iPods. Proceed, Honorable CS.
Thank you. On the third limb, Mr. Speaker, the Teacher Service Commission commenced the process of transitioning the 46,000 intern teachers to permanent and pensionable terms in September of this year. The process will be completed in December 2024, and the candidates will be confirmed into their positions in January 2025. You remember, this was part of the issues that were raised by their unions at the beginning of the term, and we promised that we'll ensure that these 46,000 teachers are placed in permanent and pensionable positions. Mr. Speaker, the fourth limb of that question to address staffing gaps in junior schools, Mr. Speaker, the government has been making provision for the annual recruitment of additional teachers. The government has also been deploying qualified teachers from primary to junior schools to further bridge the gap. Since 1st February 2023, Mr. Speaker, a total of 56,928 teachers have been serving in junior school, made up as follows: 9,000 teachers on permanent and pensionable terms, 8,378 teachers deployed from primary school to enhance the teacher numbers in junior school, and 39,550 intern teachers engaged to address teacher shortages. As noted above, these interns are in the process of being transitions to permanent and pensionable terms. Starting this month, Mr. Speaker, to December 2024, the government is recruiting an additional 20,000 teachers to further bridge in the junior schools. The projected establishment, therefore, for junior school teachers in 2025 will be 149,350 teachers. The teachers on duty will be 76,928, resulting in a shortage of 72,422 teachers. The government will progressively recruit more teachers to bridge this gap. However, the Teacher Service Commission, through a multi-agency approach, has trained 60,642,000 junior school teachers in both public and private schools to handle grade 7 and 8. The teachers will undergo further retooling in November and December to prepare them to handle grade 9. During the same period, 19,960 junior school head teachers will be also retooled. The Commission, in collaboration with the Center for Mathematics, Science and Technology Education in Africa, SHEMASTEA, has also provided a specialized telemed retooling program for 7,700 teachers teaching integrated science and mathematics to cover that gap. That substantially reduces that shortage of 72,422. I submit.
Senator Beatrice, you may now proceed to ask your two supplementary questions.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. On my question D, Honorable Speaker, I was particular on the existing staffing gaps. Honorable Speaker, the nature of training of secondary school teachers is that they are trained on 2 subjects. A number of our schools have averagely 2 teachers teaching GSS, then it means there are only 4 subjects at maximum being covered. What then happens to the other subjects that are not taught? My questions are, 1, that most schools have 2 teachers teaching subjects. An example, Honorable Speaker, is that in my sub-county, in Dewa sub-county, in the recent adverts, the schools received averagely the arts cluster vacancies, that is history and theory. What then happens, Honorable CS, on the science subject teachings in my sub-county? And I think that replicates in most of the sub-counties. And lastly, the second question, CS, is when will the ministry put in a GSS policy? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Kathuri Murungi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this chance also to ask my supplementary question to the CS. Honorable CS, when the JSS interns went into strike a few months ago, one of the reasons was about their remuneration, which is around 17,000. Noting that these students are, the teachers are trained teachers. They have been to universities, and they are competent enough to handle any subject. This financial year, what has the ministry done so that you can increase the remuneration or the wages for these JSS teachers? so that also they can feel that they are working for this country and they are doing a very noble job of training our children, Honorable CS.
Senator Eddie Okech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in his presentation, the CS has indicated that one of the criteria used in placing interns is length of stay, which I would guess length of stay from the time that a teacher has gone through training. Mr. Speaker, I am worried about this because a teacher has gone through a teaching practice after a long period of training. Then you are taken in as an intern. And then the opportunity, using that criteria of length stay, do leave a swath of many of other teachers outside. So my question is, as the ministry, and especially because it's a new CS, does he have a strategy to rethink the issue of internship for teachers? Because if teachers have gone through a training, then they have gone through teaching practice, what then entails internship? And then how does that leave a swath of teachers out? And then what do you do with those who have been left out? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wamatinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. My question to the CS, Mr. Speaker, is the JSS teachers who have been posted to different schools, which have been housed in the primary schools. Most of them are graduates. We have head of teachers who are P1s. Will the CS tell us how administratively a graduate and a P1 teacher, administratively, they're supposed to work under the P1s? Thank you.
Senator Richard Onyonka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. CS, the matter that I would like to raise is pertaining to the numbers of the teachers that you have stated in terms of the qualifications and their allocations. One of the most controversial issues, CS, and I bring it to your attention because you've just come in as a new CS, is the fact that if you look at all our counties, and there are 47, we don't have any list or data which can explain the total number of teachers that have been employed in every county. You know, one of the responsibilities of this House is to protect the counties. So would it be possible, CS, that you could actually be in possession of that list, and if necessary, whether you could post it on your portal so that Kenyans are able to see your distribution, whether it's gender-based, people with disability, and the general public distribution of these teachers within our republic. Thank you, sir.
Senator Abbas. I think there's, before Senator Abbas poses his question, Senator Richard Onyonka, if you look at the response to the question that we've just skipped, though we're coming back to it, the question by the Senator for Kakamega, there's a very long annexure there. Maybe look at it as you wait for a response from the Honorable CS. It may shed light on the question you've just asked. Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think thank also the Minister that whether the Minister is aware that in Wajir there's a huge shortage of teachers, both in primaries and secondary schools. That most of the schools, junior secondary schools, are not fully functional. My question is, as rightly said by the questionnaire, Senator Ogola, in most instances, schools have one trained teacher, the rest are BTA teachers. Only the principal in some of the most of the schools in my place. The rest are BTA teachers, the parent teachers, session teachers, employed by those teachers. And junior secondary school is actually a unique, a new foundation. I mean, things that has started recently as a result of the CBC. So as a result of that, Are the teachers, PT teachers trained to go and teach the junior secondary schools? Is there any opportunity given to those teachers so that, because there are no other teachers? Are the teachers for PT teachers trained? How many teachers out of the 56,928 teachers in JCCs, I mean the junior secondary schools, has been sent to Wajir County? Thank you.
Senator Samson Chirenge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A quick one to the CS through the Speaker. One, just one question. Mr. Speaker, can the CS tell us after the CAPSA exams, what is the population of grade 9 and the number of teachers that is needed, plus the subject that every teacher shall be teaching, in mind that he has said in his answer that the government is employing 20,000 interns? How long should those interns be in internship before they are confirmed to permanent and pensionable and the remuneration status? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Essie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While I appreciate the government initiative to extend an offer of employment to the JSS interns, I also feel it's unfair for TSC to still subject these interns for a 6-month probation period after they have had an encounter with them for more than 2 years, actually. I feel that the probation policy by TSC should work for people who are encountering TSC for the first time, not interns who've served for more than 2 years. Thank you.
Senator Gloria Oroba.
Waziri, my question is, how sustainable is this internship program, considering that the transition from internship into permanent and pensionable has actually proven to be an issue with the first batch of interns? And considering that the past finance bill was rejected and dropped, and we saw that there was a hiccup on now absorbing those interns that were supposed to be moved to PPP, what is the future financing model to ensure that this internship program is sustainable? Or otherwise, are we just going to have a lot of interns and they're not going to be taken in on permanent basis?
Senator Kavindu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. CS, Honorable CS, I just wanted to know from you how prepared you are about the grade 8s who are supposed to go to grade 9 in January, and most of the schools have no infrastructure. I don't know what you are doing about that, and that's a matter of urgency. If you can update us what you're planning to do. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You may now proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, the question of the teachers being able to only teach 2 subjects, that's why I have indicated that more teachers are being retooled to ensure that they teach more than 1 subject or more than 2 subjects. However, the focus, again, on the 20,000 teachers that are going to be recruited as interns will be towards the science-based subjects so that we can further control or further limit or further cover that gap. So there is something that is being done to ensure that we reduce the gap as much as possible through retooling, through retraining, through the extra recruitment that is taking place. In terms of the question relating to where the JSS is anchored, this is anchored in the sessional paper that is going to be brought to Parliament, but it arose, or it was anchored out of the Presidential Working Party, and we've come up with the necessary cabinet paper, which is going to give birth to the sessional paper to be brought to Parliament to anchor it in that particular sessional paper. In terms of the remuneration, of the interns to increase it from the 16 or 17,000 that they were getting. The figure that the interns get is anchored in the general government internship policy. And it is based, as I indicated, on available budget and available resources. That's why last year we did, or the last 2 years, we did 46,000 that were there for 2 years, but this coming year we are doing 20,000. It's actually anchored in the available resources, and it is because of the limitation of resources that we are not able to employ or to put in as many interns as possible. With respect to the question of the length of stay, it is length of stay from the time the teacher has finished training and has been registered as a TSC member. So the earlier the longer you've stayed, you take priority in getting the job. It's no secret that we have over 400,000 trained teachers that do not have jobs. Even this 20,000 does not do any justice to that number. This limitation is because of financial resources and lack of budgets. The strategy that we have currently is we are trying to see whether we can have these teachers also go to teach in other countries, for example, so that, because we have teachers who've been out here for 10 years, and that's really, really unfair. So we are trying to find out whether we can come up with strategies, and one of which is we are trying to ensure that Kenya is listed as a native English-speaking country, because that is a basis of sending teachers outside the country to work. Once we make that proposal and is accredited, then we'll be able to reduce the number of the teachers that we have who are jobless out here. The question relating to the graduate teacher serving under P1 heads of schools, that is an administrative and a leadership issue. Somebody could be a P1 head teacher who has been there for a long time and has experience, and the graduate is a completely fresh graduate. There shouldn't be any problem serving under that particular P1 leader, because there are policies and regulations under which each and everyone does their job. So all that people have to adhere to is what is provided for in the policies and guidelines. The question of whether the interns will be, how long they will take to be confirmed vis-a-vis what we saw from the 46,000 that we were dealing with currently. Again, this is dependent on availability of resources. That was the reason why it delayed, but once the resources were availed and budget was availed, it just follows that they are going to be confirmed. The grade 9 currently that we are expecting are going to be 1 million students. The 6-month probation period, yes, that is a good proposal. I think we'll pass it over to TSC to see how they can maybe amend that policy to ensure that those that have already served for over 24 months, there is no need to put them on a probation of another 6 months. It should not be applied holistically. The sustainability of the program of interns is dependent, again, on availability of resources, and we will have to continue looking for these budgets to ensure that the teachers that we've trained that are out here are able to be absorbed into the service. The question relating to preparedness of grade 9, I'm coming to that, but there was a question by Honorable Abbas. I didn't quite understand it. The number of trained teachers that have been sent to Wajir, we have given that list on soft, and you'll be able to see the number that have actually been sent there. It is in that list that we've given on soft, and there's another list that indicates how many teachers we have in each county. I think it's an annex number 2 or something like that. The question of how prepared we are, an assessment was done for this 1 million grade 9 students, and we came up, the ministry came up with a requirement of 16,000 classrooms. The World Bank gave 12 billion shillings, and the ministry is doing 11,000 classrooms. Out of the 11,000 classrooms that are going to be, they have been done in 2 tranches. Phase 1 was 3,500 and it's been completed. We are now in phase 2 dealing with 7,500. There is also a co-funding with the CDF where the ministry gave, I think, 3.4 billion and CDF 3.4 billion, making 7 billion. That is also going to do 6,000 classrooms, making a total of the 16,000 that are required. So we are in the process. We have done 3,500, 7,500, and the other 6,000 are in various stages of completion. We've calculated that we are going to have all these classrooms completed by the 15th of December. And the reason is this. What happened is when these resources came, they were devolved to each school. The classrooms were standardized. The budget for each classroom is 1 million or thereabout, and these resources were released to the individual schools that require classrooms, and it's being done locally. And because of that, each classroom is taking between 6 and 8 weeks to complete. And we have been going around the country and commissioning those that have been completed just to assure the country that in terms of classrooms, we are going to be ready. In terms of the textbooks that are required, the 1-to-1 ratio, we have already started transporting the materials to schools, and we've indicated that once KEPSEA is done, we've asked the head teachers to remain in school as they receive these textbooks that we also intend to complete by the 15th of December. So to ensure that the grade 9s who come to school in January, each has a textbook for each subject. They are all ready for all the nine subjects. In terms of teachers, I have already indicated what we are doing to cover those areas. So those are the infrastructure, and that is what we are doing to ensure that we are ready next year. But we are saying that as a country, we need all of us to work together, and that's why we are working with members of parliament to ensure that we are doing these classrooms together, so that where there are challenges, we face them and deal with them, so that in January, we do not have a crisis. I submit.
Well, honorable senators, if you need any further clarification, you may see the honorable CS upon this. We now move to question number 64. Yes. Senator Boni, question number 64.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to ask question number 64. A, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of the learners who lost their lives in the stampede that occurred at Kakamega Primary School on Monday, the 3rd February 2020? B, when will the families of the deceased family learners receive the compensation awarded to them by the courts? And could the Cabinet Secretary indicate the amount due to each family? And C, could the Cabinet Secretary also indicate when the families of the 3 students and a teacher who died from a water and food poisoning at Mukumu Girls High School in Kakamega County will receive the 400,000 shillings that was promised to them by the former Cabinet Secretary, the Honorable Machoku? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On part A of that question, Mr. Speaker, in this unfortunate incident, the list of the learners who lost their lives in that unfortunate incident is as follows. 1, Anonet Ilamwenya of Class 5V, Prudence Eliza of Class 5W, Catherine Alo of Class 5W, Naila Kiverenge of Class 4G, Prince Vamalia of Class 4G, Nicholas Achola of Class 5P, Vanessa Adesa of Class 5P, Fidel Kambuti of Class 5P, Simon Wawero of Class 4G, Samuel Simeka of Class 5V, Lavenda Kosa of Class 5P, June Nakumincha of Class 4G, Joseph Musami of Class 5B, Batha Munywele of Class 5Y, Salma Olesi of Class 5W. Mr. Speaker, on the second limb, by a judgment delivered on 15th of March 2023, the court ordered a compensation of 1.25 million shillings to each learner's family. We are working to secure the resources to effect the judgment before the end of this financial year. Through a multi-stakeholder effort involving the national government, the county government of Kakamega, and the Ministry of Interior and National Administration and the Salvation Army Church. Each family has been paid 413,000. On limb C of the question on the issue of the 400,000, the three others who suffered, Mr. Speaker, the three students were part of the comprehensive medical insurance cover under Edu Afya scheme. The scheme, which was operated by the National Hospital Insurance Fund, included a last expense payment of 100,000 and a group life cover of 400,000, totaling 500,000 per student. Thus far, the families of the following two students have already been paid. The late Miriam David Namajanja, admission number 18675, under policy number UPI JSL SUA. The last expense and group life benefits totaling 500,000 were paid on 20th of February 2024 to our parents, Mr. Sitoshe Webo David. The payment was deposited in a KCB bank account at the Webuye branch. The late Mambili Diana, admission number 17351, policy number UPI 29RLSM. Our next of kin, Mr. Paul Mambili, received the 500,000 being payment for the last expense and group life benefits. This amount was deposited in cooperative bank account at Kakamega branch. The third case concerned the late Wendy Amani Oyugi Abeti, admission number 19037, UPI, that's the policy number UPI 3HB6FN. The claim for our last expense and group life benefits has not yet been processed. Errors were found in the claim form and our parents were advised to correct and resubmit the form. NHIF received the corrected document on 28th of June 2024 and the claim is now being processed. Regarding the deceased teacher, the Teacher Service Commission is currently processing the gratuity for payment to the family. I submit.
Senator Bonnie Karole, do you have supplementary questions? Yes. Go ahead.
Mike. Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this was a very sad case in Kakamega. And Mr. Speaker, we are talking about 2020, 4 years ago, purely on humanitarian grounds. Could the minister assure me so that I go and tell the parents that you're going to expedite, they be paid? Losing a child and the government giving them 400 shillings is nothing. So when you delay it, you make the mourning to continue and continue. When are you going to settle it? And Mr. Speaker, the case of the children at Mukumu Girls, they are unique because the principal secretary is an alumni of that school. So they are very hopeful that, Minister, you will help their old girl to take the money to them, since she's on your immediate right. Minister, can I request that you help P.S. Beatrice to look good in her old school? In fact, one of the children, Beatrice might not have told you, is from her village. And when I went to bury her, we didn't have the words. Finally, Mr. Minister, the minister also on that day promised to pay 15 million shillings to Butere girls and 20 million to Mukumu girls. The 15 million for Butere girls went. The 20 million for Mukumu girls has not come. When are you going to pay for the same problem?
Do we have maybe questions on that train? If I follow my list, then I can see Kadri Muma, Senator Kadri.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable CS, my follow-up question on this is whether the Ministry of Education has a policy regarding compensation of families of learners in the events of accidents, loss, deaths arising from events such as what happened in Mukumu, poisoned water, what happened in Nyeri, fires. I think it is despicable that you would have somebody begging a ministry on the delivery of rights. Do we have a policy on this to ensure that every school has an insurance or an arrangement that can ensure that the loss of lives, loss of limbs, disability caused because of negligence is covered by the government or the insurance companies?
Senator Joe Nyutu, Chair Education Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question may not be very different from what Senator Catherine Muma has asked, but maybe I can put it in a different way. Mr. Speaker, and I'm addressing the Cabinet Secretary through you. Over the years, we have had very many incidents in schools, Mr. Speaker, causing deaths to students. And all the ministry has done all the time is to tell us about some safety measures that they have set in place in order for learners to be safe. But, Mr. Speaker, it seems that when these incidents do happen, they defy the regulations that the ministry has had. Exactly what new measures, Mr. Speaker, has the ministry, instituted? Because the old measures seem not to work anymore. The issue of staircases, because I think that is what happened in Kakamega, inadequate staircases in school buildings. Do they inspect regularly, or this happens only when an incident happens, Mr. Speaker? So in a nutshell, what new does the ministry have, save for the old measures of ensuring student safety in schools? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Beatrice Ogora.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question relates to compensation of loss. Honorable Speaker, sometimes back, a student at St. Albert's Ulanda Girls, then called Quinta Amondi, was shot by a prison warder, a stray bullet, and lost half of her face, half of the eye. This affected the student in the learning process, and up to date, Honorable CS, the student has yet to get a compensation. What would you say about that? And what follow-up would you make?
Senator Samson Chalye.
Mr. Speaker, my quick question, the reason there was stampede in Kakamega and in the Russia fire, Mr. Speaker, there is a Ministry of Education policy on the standards and safety of learners. How regular is the Ministry of Education, through the new CS, Mr. Migosi, do spot check to ensure that the boarding facilities are either fireproof or are compliant with safety measures? And what has the ministry done to ensure compliance, or in partnership with Ngao and other agencies, so that our learners are not subjected to challenges of safety within the learning institutions, especially primary and secondary schools? I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honorable Senators, those questions are just similar, so I want to pick these two other senators and then the CS will be able to respond, because you need only one similar answer. Senator Omar Sheikh, Maliam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is Bana CS. What do you think about this KPSEA exam, which require a lot of resource, and at the end of it, there is no certificates? And what is the difference between the KPSEA and the internal exam done by individual schools? Thank you.
Last on this question, Senator Agnes Kavidu Mudhama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable CS, from the tragedy of Changuli on 25th of March 2001, I think the Ministry of Education must have put in place by now strict measures about fires in schools. And I would also like to know if those students who died in Changuli tragedy were completely compensated. Thank you, Mr. CBS.
Mr. CS, answer those questions. Can we proceed to the next question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree with Senator Khalwale that the cases of death were very sad, and I assure you that I'll follow this up, even as an advocate, to ensure that this compensation comes through as soon as possible. There is no reason why it should take more than a few years to sort out such issues. 4 years is a long time, so I'll handle that one. In terms of the monies that were promised, the 15 million was, of course, paid. Out of the 20 million, we've already paid 5 million, and we are following up with the 15 million balance. And this is because of the limitations of resources, as you may understand. Once it becomes available, we would be able to sort that out. So it is in the program. Thank you. Now, regarding compensation policy at the ministry for accidents, fires, and any other misfortune events, Mr. Speaker, during the previous financial year, we had the policy that was provided for under the Edu Afia that covered all these requirements, and every incident and accident was compensatable through that policy. Now it is again being provided for under the Universal Health Program that we are rolling out, the SHIF, and we've already sent out a circular to parents and all our teachers to ensure that the students through the parents are registered on SHIF, and I think as a ministry we are actually ahead. The large number of those 12 million that are already registered come from our ministry. So the compensation is already provided for in that particular policy. The defiance to the regulations and what new strategy we are coming up with is that after this particular accidents, it became clear that because of the penalties that are provided for in the regulations that are not, punitive enough, and because we are doing an amendment to the Basic Education Act, what we want to do through that amendment, and we'll be bringing it to Parliament, is to raise those policies into provisions of the law, so that when you violate them, the penalty is that much more severe, including imprisonment. Because what happens, the policies are in place, but sometimes there's some laxity in some of them being obeyed. But we are elevating them to the level of being regulations and for the level of being statutory, so that people can take them very, very seriously. And we are working on the amendment, and we will be able, I am sure, to limit that. In fact, when the Indarasha event occurred, we commissioned a thorough investigation of all the boarding schools, and the report has been done. It was being analyzed yesterday. We have not completed the analysis, after which we'll issue a circular, and thereafter to tell the people what they are supposed to do. Any school that we'll find that is not conforming will be deregistered. On the question of Printer Amondi, I'm unaware of the case as we speak. I would suggest that if you can forward to us the details of that case, I'll be happy to follow it up for compensation and for proper handling of the case. Now, the regularity of spot checks on how the schools are adhering to the policies is an issue also related to limitation of resources, because the safety and quality assurance officers that we have are not sufficient. So we'll be coming back to Parliament to seek for more resources in order to employ a number that is proportional to the schools that we have in order to ensure that the spot checks are done on a regular basis and that we have enough personnel well capacitated to ensure that they are doing their job and they are properly, capacitated, tooled, enough vehicles. In fact, there's a question of vehicles, it comes to it, and ensuring that that spot check is going to be done on a regular basis. Under KEPSEA, Mr. Speaker, the assessment is focused on monitoring the learner's progress, and it is done in two phases. There's a formative assessment within the school that is done by the school at the teacher's level, and there's a summative assessment that is now done to validate the internal assessment, so that we know that when the child is moving, transiting from primary to junior school, at least they are properly tooled and they're properly ready to undertake the studies in junior school. The reports are given for the learner. The reports are given. There is a report that is given to each learner, and it's a school report. There are two reports. There's a school report. Actually, there are three reports. There's a learner's report, a school report, and a national report. That report informs the assessment of the student so that we exactly understand the learner's progress. 2001 Changuli compensation. We shall confirm that. I don't have those details right now, but we'll confirm whether the 2001 incident, the ministry and the students were compensated. We have already put it down, and we'll share that information with you. Once we have it, we'll just send it to you. We are quite accessible. And we, as we said, we put in place measures to ensure that these things don't happen. And I think Kenyans need to take it seriously, even parents, to help us when they go to schools and maybe they find students are congested. It is for them to let us know, then we'll move. I submit.
Thank you, CS. Let's now go to question number 095. Senator Mwenda Gataya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to ask a question from the CS Education pertaining issues in the Raganidi County. So, Honorable Waziri, what is the ministry doing to address the existing shortage of educational staff, specifically curriculum support and quality assurance officers in the Raganidi County? Are there plans by the ministry to deploy additional vehicles to the Raganidi County to address the prevailing inefficiency and enhance the delivery of educational services across the county? Could the Cabinet Secretary at the same time also explain why it has taken long for teachers serving in the Kadwana, and Chuka municipalities and Chuka and Bangombe sub-counties respectively to be considered for hardship allowance, despite serving under similar adverse conditions as their colleagues in the Raka South and the Raka North sub-counties? I submit, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. CS.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On question part A, to that question, Tharaka-Nithi County, Mr. Speaker, has one lead county quality assurance and standards officer based at the county education offices. It also has one quality assurance and standards officer based at the county education offices, and 7 sub-county quality assurances and standard officers that are stationed in the 7 sub-counties in Tharaka-Nithi as follows. Titus Command Mburu, the employment number is there. Designation is the county quality assurance, and is stationed at the CDE's office. Simon Tanoi Waiwa, stationed at the CDE's office. Waome F. Mureithi, Meru South Sub-County. Peter Dhuranira, Mkombitu, Tharaka South Sub-County. Eliud Karanja Kamau, Igambangombe Sub-County. Peter Kabiro Laibu, Mudhambi Sub-County. Patrick Murira, Chiakariga Sub-County. Michael Karaoke, Tharaka North Sub-County, and Kinywa Silas, Mara Sub-County. Thus, Mr. Speaker, the Tharaka Nithi County has a quality assurance and standards officers in all its 7 sub-counties. This is the standard staffing level for quality assurance and standard officers. All these officers have also been capacity built and inducted in the ongoing education reforms and are executing their mandates within their respective sub-counties. Part 2 of the question. The ministry dispatched 3 Isuzu D-Max double cabin vehicles to Tharaka Nithi County in November 2023. An additional vehicle was dispatched to the county this October. The following are the vehicles serving the county. Number 1, there is a GKC 670A with the CDE. Number 2, GKC 680A with the sub-county director, Tharaka North. Number 3, GKC 653A, Tharaka South. And number 4, JKC 671 in Mara. The ministry is seeking the requisite budgetary allocation in order to purchase more vehicles for the remaining sub-counties, and indeed other parts of the country are also facing the similar shortages. Part C, Mr. Speaker, the payment of hardship allowance is done automatically once an area is classified as a hardship area. The classification is done by the Ministry of Public Service and Human Capital Development. The areas of the county that are currently classified as hardship zones are indicated in legal notice number 534 of 1997 and next provided as annexure number 4. Tharaka South and Tharaka North sub-counties are not classified as hardship areas at the moment. As a ministry, we write to the Ministry of Public Service and Human Capital Development to request it to consider specified areas as hardship areas. Once that classification is done, the Teacher Service Commission will automatically pay the allowances. I submit.
Senator Mufaya, do you have any supplementary question?
I've captioned the answers given by the CS, but Honorable Speaker, you know, I am asking questions on behalf of the service consumers, especially on part 1, Honorable Speaker, where we are seeking to know whether we are getting some quality assurance and curriculum developers. This is an issue, Honorable Speaker, that has really bedeviled quite a number of sub-counties, though the CS has just narrated the number of the quality assurance and curriculum developers.